All right, good afternoon. Feels a little funny being up here giving this report with Leslie sitting over there eyeballing me, but hi, Leslie. There's two things I want to say before I start the report. I've been there a little over 2 months, and I have been amazed by the staff of RSD. Not just the staff of RSD either, the whole entire ARIN organization is a great organization to work for, and I'm very happy to be there. I don't have any old office stories because I refused to start working until they got us into a new modern building. So my first day was at the new office, so yeah. Okay, so we'll get right into this. So the RSD core functions, of course, is to do the evaluate resource requests and to fulfill them to the best of our ability and to help customers get the resources that they need in order to do their business. That is the core function. And then we have these other core functions, the transfer request, the org pocs, the change of authority services, where people have to come in and show proof that the resources should be put into their name because they haven't been updated in quite a while. And a lot of that happens because of the transfers. Somebody comes in, tries to transfer resources, and there's no way to really tell that they are supposed to be transferring those resources. So there's a lot of work behind all of these change of authority services. Database record maintenance, POC validation, SWIPs, all of that, it's all done in the RSD. And then there's the customer support portion of it, which is a telephone help desk that is 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Ask ARIN that comes into us, and also the emails to hostmaster@arin.net. There's still a lot of that, and it's actually tedious because I think somewhere around 90% of what comes into Hostmaster is spam. So it's very tedious just to work through all of that. Some of the support functions, we work with all of the departments within ARIN. We help with staff. We do staff assessments, implementation plans. We do requirements and testing along with Mark's team. Communication, Susan's team. We work with her on getting the communications out to the community that need to be put out to the community. There's one that's I see missing is the financial services department. We do a lot of work supporting Val and her team on the financial services side of things. Revocations, billing issues, a lot of different things that we have to work with them on. Outreach, we support the ARIN on the road, trade shows, presentations. Most of you are probably familiar with John Worley if you've been at an ARIN on the road. He takes care of most of those. Statistics and database analysis, the stats, community requests for data, research, etc. We do a fair amount of that as well. So this slide is just a quick slide of the organization served by ARIN. Non-member customers comprise 41% of the customers we serve. Our ISP subscriber members, 14%, and then legacy it comprises the largest, 44%. I think the big thing to take away is the 37,000 total organizations over 37,000 total organizations that we support. This is an interesting slide as well. This is the number of /24s that are covered under agreements, Ipv4/24s. So the total in the database is over 6.5 million. I believe that number is probably down a little bit from the last report due to inter-RIR transfers. But it's still interesting that that there's so many that are not covered under any type of agreement, over almost 3 million. 3 million under the standard RSA, and then we have the a little over 500,000 that are under the legacy RSA. So here's a little graph that shows the RSA coverage over time. It's going up. It's not going up quickly, but some of it we lose some due to the transfers as well. But it's steadily going up. So we're steadily having more agreements, more of the resources under agreement. Okay, so on the request side, the IPv4 requests are decreasing due to the IPv4 free pool running out. So basically what we do for IPv4 requests today is for the wait list. And they're slowing down as well because people are realizing that they're probably not going to get any resources through the wait list, especially with the list that's already there today. What is increasing though, and it takes a little bit more time, is the pre-approvals and the specified recipient transfers. IPv6, I have graphs for all these too, so we'll see that soon coming up. The IPv6 request, it's steady traffic. It's not increasing at any fast pace, so that's not great news. But the good news is it's steady. It's as you'll see on the graph, it's steady across the months. And the change of authority request, of course, it's increasing with the merger and acquisitions and specified recipient source requests. It's interesting because a lot of times people will come in for an 8.3, which is within the ARIN region transfer, or an inter-RIR transfer, and find out that first they have to do an 8.2 transfer to get the resources into the right organization that can then do the 8.3 or 8.4 transfers. And of course, we expect continued increase in volume in that area. So IPv4 requests per month, the first month, July 2015, you'll probably realize that's 2 months before runout at ARIN. And that was a peak, almost 400 requests that month. And as you can see, it is steadily, well, it went down very quickly, and then it's kind of remained steady at 100 a month since then. The IPv4 waiting list growth, again, you can see it went up, and now it's kind of leveling off a little bit. As I said, people are really going more to the transfer market. We do lose people off the waiting list because once they have a transfer approved, they come off the waiting list. Some people pull themselves off the waiting list because they're getting ready to go into a transfer. And then, of course, we have had a few come off due to the return of address space from IANA. 8.3 transfers completed each month. So the 8.3, of course, is within the ARIN region. ARIN to ARIN stays in the ARIN region. It's steadily climbing. It's been steady for a while. It went up pretty quickly after the free pool went out, but now it's been pretty steady the last 6 months. Inter-RIR transfers completed per month. I'm not exactly sure, but what I've been told from my staff is that it took a while to get all the bugs out of it, and I think the first few months there was only one other RIR that we did the transfers with, but in the last few months it's really taken off. The kinks have been worked out of the process, and these types of requests are steadily being increasing and being approved. So here's the IPv6 request per month. This is the good news, bad news kind of graph. The good news is that it's been steady. Bad news is it's not growing at any alarming rate. As a matter of fact, it's not growing at all. It's just staying steady across. You can see the spike in September 2015. That was, of course, run out, and it did spike then, but it came right back down to what it had been averaging, and it stayed there. This is a good news slide. For the first time, our percentage of ISP members with both IPv4 and IPv6 holdings is more than IPv4 only. Yeah! So I think that is good news, and as you can see, the trend is going. We expect that to continue to grow. The telephone help desk, as I said, they're 12 hours, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Eastern. Average calls a month are 700. Most of the common topics are, point of contact, validation, ticket status, ARIN online use, transfer, but we get any kind of question you can imagine coming in through the phone. And this is the team. As I said in the beginning, this is an amazing team. Kudos to Leslie for putting most of it together, because I know she had a lot to do with this team right here, and each and every one of them are amazing employees to have working for you. I would like to point out Lisa and Eddie, who have been supporting us through this meeting, and Eddie actually supported all the way. He's been here all week supporting all the way through NANOG and the ARIN meeting. So you get a chance. I don't know if they're still out there. I'm not sure they're still out there, but if they're still out there, you get a chance to walk by and let them know you appreciate them. Oh, and I think one other point to probably make, because I don't think we had the paralegal at the last meeting. Maybe was Susie on board yet? Was it pointed out?
We haven't announced it, but we added staff, and we're adding more paralegal to assist, because the transfers, for some reason, require documentation, and paralegal, someone who has the right skill set for it.
So I just wanted to point that out, and it's been a very big help to everybody in the department. And that's it.
Any questions for John?
Hi, David Huberman, Oracle. I have a request and then a question. We've talked a lot over the last few years about point of contact validation. And I like the fact that you've only been the Registration Services Senior Director for 2 months, because and you're coming from the outside, because you're bringing a fresh viewpoint at RSD of what's going on with POC validation. So my request to you, you say it's one of the number one calls you get. We've been hearing that for a while now. I'd ask you over the next 6 months to really take a look at that and see how we can improve it, and see what you need from the AC, what you need from the community in terms of consensus, or what you need to make the situation a little bit better. Because we've been hearing about it being not quite right for a while now, and since you have a fresh perspective, you bring that's really valuable to us.
Thank you, David. And I would like to just say Leslie is actually working on that as well, and spending a lot of time with that, and working with me and helping me to understand the problem so that we can actually resolve those issues. Cool. So kudos to Leslie again for doing that, still doing that.
All right. John Curran, you're going to have to guide me here, because I'm not sure if this is appropriate for right now. So yesterday, John Sweeting, you came up and you gave your policy experience report. And the first thing you highlighted was autonomous system numbers, and what you characterized as a fairly onerous justification process that you weren't sure you understood why we had it. And you hit a topic near and dear to my heart. For 5 years, I've been bothering Woody over there, who's not listening, about ASNs, because I've always envisioned ASNs as a Pez dispenser. I don't like the fact that it's difficult to get an ASN as an operator when I need it, that I got to go dig up contracts that I can't even find in a big company. And then I have to pay for them, which I really don't like. So we have RFC 1930, which is one of the best RFCs I've ever read, because it's crystal clear. And it tells you when you need a globally unique ASN and when you don't. And we have Section 5 of the NERPA. And it's simply it's a different way of saying what's in 1930, which is you get a globally unique ASN if you have a need. And here's what we think a need is. But it's unclear to me where the line is between policy in the NERPM and implementation practice of RSD and ARIN as a whole, of how we solve the problem that you've brought up and how we make things better for the operators and better for ARIN, and then the tie-in for the board on how we can either charge a lot less money for these things or stop charging for them because we don't have to put work into it anymore. There aren't any material costs to recover. John, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Colonel?
so recognize that the moment we assign an ASN to a party, if we want to have those records updated, then, as someone said earlier today, the records that are most current are the ones that occasionally pay an invoice because they have a relationship with us. The ones that don't pay languish, and after a few years they point to an organization that names changed and whose contacts went away. So a completely free process you need to think about because it encourages use an ASN and ignore it, dispose it, leave it languishing, and doesn't encourage record keeping.
Okay.
If you've got any record keeping, then you've got to have enough to do an invoice, maintain a billing contact, have an online account, and so you've got a fork in the road. Free is dangerous because it really does encourage use once and discard ASNs. But one that has a cost has a certain minimum associated with it just for record maintenance. And I mean, we're happy to take guidance from the community if it wants a major change with respect to ASNs. I think one thing that would help is right now ASN policy, you could have a much simpler policy that says if someone wants an ASN, give it to them, issue it to them, and let them pay for it. And the fact that they're willing to pay means they wouldn't do it without some need.
So you think the driver you think the driver is in NERPM?
You can reduce the ASN processing time to clicking a button and getting one immediately with no requirements if that's what you folks want to do.
So that's an interesting answer to me, and I'm not arguing with it. But I will note that the text that's in Section 5 hasn't changed since ARIN's inception, even when there was no NERPM, okay?
Right.
It was the same guidance that was found on the website in 1997.
Right.
And in the old days, Michael O'Neill in RSD, who's now in ENG, Michael O'Neill used to just look and see, the only question that was asked on the template was, who's the provider, and who's your contact there?
Right.
And you would say, Time Warner Cable, John Sweeting, okay? Right. And he looked at that, made sense, and he hit approve.
Right.
The text hasn't changed. The procedures changed with good reason.
Right.
And today, if it needs to go the other way, I'm not clear that that's not a procedural thing in ARIN's written processes. And rather than
I think the level of verification you want is something that should be in the NERPM.
Okay.
Okay? And if you make it clear that you want a change and you put language that reflects what you want it to be, we'll certainly implement it.
Okay. Then I'll follow up and leave and by saying, if it happens that NERPM is changed, if that were to happen one day,
right.
And if the burden of work that RSD does is lowered as a result, I strongly request that the board consider a fee reduction on the amount of money charged in an ASN, because the two will correlate.
So I'm going to ask a question and just work with me here. How much more work would it be to get an ASN than it would be to get an IPv6 prefix?
Well, V6 has a lot of moving parts in the policy.
I'm saying if you want a /48 as an end user and you come to ARIN.
Both should be very, very easy.
Right. And when you say you want a reduction, are you saying lower than $100 a year?
No.
Oh, that's fine.
No.
Okay.
We're
just
charging
checking.
$500 a year.
I see. That initial fee you see is particularly disproportionate to the amount of work involved.
In this,
Got it. In the current.
In this imaginary future where there was a lot less processing time by RSD.
Yes, we can certainly, if you want to simplify the issuance process, we can certainly lower the initial fee to match.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking you to please consider. Thank you.
Yeah, and David, thank you for that. But that was part of the reason that was on the policy experience report, is because there's a lot of effort put into approving a simple AS request.
Owen
DeLong, ARIN AC, Akamai. So you're saying a lot of the requests that come in for 8.3 transfers end up requiring an 8.2 transfer up front. Is there anything that the AC could do to help facilitate doing that as a single process and reducing both the effort and the fees that get thrown into that process as a result?
The answer to your question, no.
Okay.
The problem is that we require an 8.2 to make sure we're dealing with the actual source organization, and we prefer to have that a distinct process.
Okay. Second
And
question.
Just to add to that, Owen, it's the 8.2, when this happens, the 8.2 usually takes a lot more time and effort to verify. And then
Sure.
once that's done, the 8.3 goes very smooth.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, but then the person ends up paying 2 transfer fees and going through multiple steps, and it seems to me that it's a lot of the same documentation and whatnot in.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not the same documentation. The 8.2 transfer is required because someone thinks they have rights to a resource, but it's presently not listed in their organization name and who is. If you know someone who is in that situation, tell them to clean up their records first. It's very distinct from 8.3.
Right.
Once someone is correctly associated with with a block under the registry, an 8.3 transfer is predominantly based on verifying the recipient.
Right. Okay.
Two transactions.
Okay, if we can go back to the slide where you had the orgs that were non-members and the orgs that are members. There is a category that we have created that I don't see up there, which is non-ISP subscriber members.
This doesn't reflect membership at all. All this reflects is resource, oh, I'm sorry, this is the orgs.
Yeah.
Yes, this is member customers, ISP subscriber members, and legacy. You're right, there could be a slice added in there for the organizations under a registration services agreement.
Well, specifically the ones under a registration services subscription agreement.
Right.
And what I'm wondering is, are there just currently not any of those organizations yet, or are they missing from the graph?
There's a small number.
Very small.
So one part of fixing this is if we can get a good ARIN services document out, as part of that, we can clean this up.
Okay.
Okay?
That's fine. I just was wondering, are they on the graph in some other category, or are they just
Oh,
missing?
and it's a good catch. I agree with you. We will start including it.
Okay. And on the 8.4 transfers, there weren't numbers for August, September, so I'm wondering, did that ramp that appeared to be starting continue into August and September, or do we know?
Which slide? Oh, the inner RAR?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, 'cause, it has. I can tell you, I don't know the numbers exactly, but I can tell you from my emails that our inter-IR transfer approvals going back and forth with both RIPE and ARIN, our APNIC, that it is going at a very good pace.
Okay. And then finally, on the IPv4 only and IPv4 plus v6 graph, which is, I think, a few more slides down. There we go. Is there yet a IPv6 only category that exists? I'm assuming, since we're out of v4 to issue to new entrants, that not everybody has necessarily succeeded in getting a transfer, and at some point we're going to have v6 onlys. Will we start tracking those when they do exist, and or are we just not tracking them yet even though they do exist?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to your question, but I can answer that yes, we will track them, and if that's interesting that you want to see on a graph, we will absolutely do that.
We do have ISP only, IPv6 only organizations. I believe they're all end user. I can let you know in 20 minutes. I have tools.
Okay. And actually, it would be good to track both the ISPs and end users on this graph. I'm not sure it's necessary to break the ISPs out.
It's Vint from Google. I just wanted to confirm something. Some people might end up with v6 addresses from one RIR and v4 addresses from another. That can happen. And I assume that because the tables are theoretically aggregated, we could still see that. Is that correct?
Yes, that does happen, and we can see that, definitely. And just for the data regarding the transfers, August and September, past July, you wanted to know, both are continuing. They had I don't know if they're increasing, but both were 10 and 11 respectively for those 2 months, number of transfers in those 2 months. So it might be slightly lower than July, but we're still doing more than 10 each month.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire.
Yes.
Just going back to the earlier discussion in regards to ASNs for a moment, because I did yesterday ask about getting some clarification in regards to unique routing policy. Is this something that would fit in the services document, or is the services document more geared towards IRR, online services, things like that, first as the first part of it?
Right. For ASNs, to the extent that you require the community, the extent that the community has a certain requirement for issuance of an ASN, that should be in the policy for, in the NERPM for ASN with appropriate definitions in Section 2. Okay? So that's completely independent of what I was referring to the services, an ARIN services document was for clarity on where getting clarity on what services we provide to end users versus ISPs. In truth, an entry in the registry should be an entry in the registry and get all the registry services.
So my recollection historically was one of the concerns was staff interpretation going somewhere outside of the NRPM. The reason I'm using this as an example is unique routing policy can be a all-encompassing push button like David is suggesting, if ARIN interprets it that way, but we don't know what staff's interpretation of a unique routing policy is. So
Right.
I don't want to be in a situation where we add 5,000 examples. We've already taken out many things, but at least having a basis of what ARIN defines as a unique routing policy might really help.
So we're happy to do that. The normal way this happens is that if you have something that you want us to consider unique routing policy, you put that in a policy proposal, but you put it in the notes and say, here's how we want this implemented. And we come back on a staff and legal report and confirm we'd follow that implementation. We can have the discussion independent of actually having a policy proposal to change ASN policy if you want. That's not a problem. But it's far easier for you to say what you want and us to implement it than the other way around.
Okay, so does that mean that unique routing policy is non-defined and non-usable because or John, we're going in circles. Either you can tell us what unique routing policy is when you apply it, or you say that every time you make a judgment call and this policy is not a good policy, it has to be one or the other.
Right. So let me clarify. If your goal is to simplify the issuance of ASNs, remove the requirement of a unique routing policy. Done. Done. Now, trying to refine our operational process to make it simpler to clarify that someone needs a unique routing policy and how that's defined won't probably effectively result in any faster ASN improvement. So if you're actually trying to make it simpler, remove a requirement is much better than trying to refine an operational process. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I guess I'm the only one. Scott Morzo, IRS. For Owen's question about IPv6 only ISP members, because of the policy issues before the changes in 2010, 2011, I believe the IRS is a ISP IPv6 only organization. Our IPv4 resources are all under a separate legacy organization. So they exist.
There's a number of organizations that are multimodal in ARIN, i.e. having multiple org IDs, either because policy encouraged it or pricing encouraged it. Our long-term goal is to make it possible for someone to have an org ID and have simplicity out of ARIN. But there are a number of organizations that have multiple org IDs right now entirely because it was the easiest way for them to get their job done.
All right.
Anything else for John?
I would like to thank the three AC members that came up to the mic to make me feel warm and welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.